Okay, we're beginning over here, chapter 9, and chapter 9 is called Foreknowledge and Free Will. So it's the concept that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything, and yet we still have Bechira, we still have free will. So, just in Hebrew over here, we would call this Yediyah, Hashem's foreknowledge, and Bechira, our free will. How exactly is this going to work? So Rav Tat says like this: the relationship between divine foreknowledge, that Hashem knows everything that's going to happen, and Bechira, the human free will, is one of the deepest mysteries of existence. And we have to go very deep to understand what's going on over here. And it's a very sensitive area, he writes, in the Torah commentaries, how they deal with it, in ways that appear to hide more than it reveals. And he's gonna begin to explain over here. I mean, we're gonna have to explain the quandary that our mind is gonna go into in order to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything, and yet we still have Bechira, we have free will. And he says like this, and he actually explains very beautifully. It's a fundamental principle in the Torah that Hashem is above all the limitations of time. That means that He knows the future as He knows the present. Hashem is not bound by time, which means it's not October 30th at 11:10 in the morning for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is for us because we are confined by time and space. That's how we live. That's the world that we live in. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no time in the world of Hashem. That means whatever was in the beginning of time, whatever is right now, and whatever will be in the future, everything is revealed before HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all times. Hashem sees the whole world, the whole universe, all of history has unfolded in front of His eyes at all times. Now, that means He knows the future just as He knows the present and the current right now. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that a certain human action will occur because He knows the future, how can we say then that when a person does something, he's actually doing it with Bechira, with free will? The person had to perform the action, didn't he? Again, if Hashem knows everything right now that was, that is, and will be, He's fully aware of what's going to be in the future. When a person does something, let's say that it's like we're in real time. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu already knew about this action that's going to take place. He's already seeing this action. Everything is revealed in front of him. So did the person have free will when he did it? Hashem knew it's going to happen already. Did Hashem know what this man's free will was going to be before he actually used it? What's going on over here? So since it was revealed to the Creator, to Hashem, before it actually transpired, no other possibility really ever existed. The person may have felt that he was choosing between alternatives. He might have thought, I'm choosing between saying Lashon Hara and not saying Lashon Hara. I'm choosing between breaking into the house or not breaking into the house. I'm choosing in between stealing the money from my office or not stealing the money. He might have thought that he's making a choice. However, only one possibility existed, because Hashem already knows what's going to be, and that means the person didn't have Bechira, had no free will at all. Very hard to understand, says Rav Tatz. So he widens the question over here, or he defines it more. Logical analysis of this problem would seem to leave us with uncomfortable options. It's either or, says Rabbi Tatz. Either, number one, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's foreknowledge, His Yediyah, His knowledge, has a deficiency, which means somehow HaKadosh Baruch Hu is perfect, the master of the universe, who created the world and runs the world and knows everything that's going on. Somehow, He's missing something. What is He missing? Says Rav Tatz, it must be that somehow he's unaware of the future when it comes to human actions. He knows what the weather is going to be. He knows how the world is going to generally look. But when it comes to my individual actions as a human being, he doesn't really know about that. Well, if you say that, so then you're saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not all-knowing, and he's not all-powerful, and that not everything's in his hands, in his control. So that's one problem. Number two, maybe you'll say that we ourselves, who we think that we're using Bechira, we think that we're doing free will actions over here, it's really only an illusion that we're making choices. Really, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything the way it's going to turn out. And that would seem to mean then that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is already dictating the way that the world is going to run. And I myself am coming and doing something, and I felt I'm using free will. It's an illusion, because Hashem already knew what's going to happen anyway. So I didn't really use free will. So says Rav Tatz, so this is very problematic. If you go according to the first way, which means that Hashem's foreknowledge is deficient, that is it possible to assert that some aspect of the future is beyond God's knowledge? Then you're saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not all-powerful, not all-knowing, not almighty. Because we're saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows a lot, but he doesn't know everything. So Albert Einstein was a genius. He seemed to know everything. So whatever you say that he doesn't know, you're limiting his genius. Well, he knew the theory of relativity, but he didn't really understand the theory of whatever some mathematical equation or theory. So then that you're telling me that he's not as big a genius as he thought that he was. If he understands relativity, he should understand everything else. They didn't understand that. Okay, so then you're limiting the genius of Einstein. If you're telling me that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything, but somehow in the world of man's actions, he doesn't know everything, so then you're limiting the genius, the greatness, the all-encompassing infiniteness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a problem. And the second side of the coin is also a problem, which means that what? That I am doing things that I think that I'm using my Bechir, but it's all an illusion. I'm not really doing any Bechir because Hashem knows already what's going to happen. So he says, it's also a problem. The entire Torah is based on the principle of Bechira. As we've been learning this, we're already holding by chapter 9. We have 8 chapters that have drilled in this concept and this reality that we are all Bali Bechir, we have free will. We are creating our destiny for ourselves. We are choosing to become better or becoming worse. It's all up, it's in our hands. So the entirety of the Torah rests upon the notion of Bechira, free will. The doctrine of reward and punishment, schar v'einish, would be nonsense if there would be no Bechira. Meaning, since that my life is in my hands to do with whatever I want, if I do a mitzvah, I chose to do the mitzvah, I'm going to get rewarded. If I do an aveira, I do a sin, I chose to sin, and therefore I'm going to get a punishment. If you tell me that there's really no bechira, so then there's no reward, and there's no punishment. Because I can't be rewarded for something that Hashem made me do, and I shouldn't get punished for something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me do, because He's already well aware of what the outcome is going to be. And therefore he writes, all of the mitzvahs that we have in the Torah would be meaningless, because if the mitzvah is for the sake of my energy and the effort that I put in there, and it brings me closer to Hashem, and it gives me schar v'onis, reward for doing it, what's the point? Because it would be meaningless, and the world of human action would be no more than an empty charade. Whatever I'm doing is like I'm programmed. I'm a bit like a robot over here. Meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu programmed me to be this kind of a person. He programmed me to be that kind of a person. My wife is like that. My kids are like this. I'll get in situations which might put some stress on me and challenge me. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows how I'm going to pull through already. So therefore I'm not really doing much, because it's already predetermined how things are going to work out. Says Rabbi Tatz, either way, either side of this coin is very problematic. How are we going to define free will? So he says, Torah teaching is clear and explicit. Despite the paradox, the apparent paradox, both divine foreknowledge and human free will are real. That means Hashem's yediyah, his knowledge of what's going to happen before it happens, it's true. That I have Bechira, I have free will, that's also true. And they're both axioms of the Torah. So now, where do we see this? It's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says over the following words. The Mishnah says, Hakol tzafui, everything is revealed. That means everything is revealed to Hashem. Varashus nesuna, nevertheless, the ability, the permission is given into the hands of man, free will, to do with it whatever he wants. Pretty clear. Everything is foreseen, and yet free will is still granted to man. So he says, Rabbi Tatz, the Mishnah is not telling us that these two principles are novel ideas, and we would not have known this otherwise. That you should know there's a concept of Yediyah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything is foreseen. And you should know there's a concept of Bechira, that man has free will. That's not what the Mishnah is telling us. Rather, the Chiddush over here, the novelty, the unique idea that the Mishnah is giving over is that both principles exist. On one hand, Hashem knows everything. On the other hand, you have Bechira. And that's even though that they are at a logical contradiction with each other. It does not make any sense. Hashem can't know everything, and I can still feel that I have free will. And I can't have free will if Hashem knows everything's going to happen anyway already. So how does that work? Says the Mishnah, it works. Do you understand? We don't understand yet. Will we ever understand? We might not fully understand, but we certainly don't know yet because we didn't see at all the commentaries that he brings down over here how it's explained. But suffice to say, we have these two principles. They're mutually exclusive. Really, only one should be true. They're so opposite. How could they both be true? But the Mishnah is telling us this tremendous chiddush, this great novelty over here, and that is they're both real, irreconcilable, and they both coexist with each other. So now, the rest of this chapter, as he writes over here, what are the classical Torah approaches to this problem? So he says the following are the main ideas of the discussion that it progressed from the post-Talmudic centuries, which means we're going to get into the ideas of the greatest thinkers of all time, of how they addressed this quandary in Jewish thought. And this is a major, and this is something that has bothered philosophers for all generations. And as we'll see, the philosophers of Klal Yisrael were intrigued by this question. Remember, none of them became less of a believer in HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a result of the question. And even if their answer might not be totally satisfying to you, or maybe it wasn't even totally satisfying to them or the people of the generation, so these great leaders of Klal Yisrael, they continued to persevere with the idea that everything that I'm doing is Bechira, is my free will. Hashem knows it all already? Okay, Hashem knows it all already. It's not gonna limit me from doing what I'm going to do over here in this world. So there's a lot of commentators over here. I just see over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wow. So there's 13, I don't know if we'll call them different approaches, or maybe some of them will complement each other, but there's 13 approaches that we're going to see as we go through this to help us understand why this question, even though what we call it's called a Bam Kasha, it's a big question on the whole world of Bechira, nevertheless, it's not going to weaken our emunah, our belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and understanding just how central Bechira, free will, is to our lives. So we'll embark upon that journey starting on Wednesday, Be'ez Hashem. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Good to see you all again. And hope to see you in person on Wednesday at 10:30 a.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.